Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the special council meeting. This is Thursday, February 25th. We do have two items on our agenda today. We have a special council meeting, and then we'll have our regular city council study session. But I will now call to order the special council meeting. Council member Luna appears to not be here, but he in fact is here. Mr. Luna, are you on the telephone?
I am.
Okay, thank you. Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
The first item on our agenda is to take action on a dollar limit increase and month-to-month contract extension for general security services for various city facilities as requested by the Parks, Recreation, and Community Facilities. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Luna. It's tough to do that on the phone. Item 2 is to take action on approving and authorizing the city manager to enter into two purchase and sale agreements and a development agreement with Mesa Housing Associates 2 LLC for the conveyance of approximately 2 acres of real property at the 50 to 100 block of West First Avenue for the development of a 5-story 71-unit affordable senior housing development and a 3-story 24-unit market rate housing development. Thank you. We have Jeff McVeigh and Natalie Lewis here to give us a presentation on this. Just so everyone knows, I do have 2 requests to speak on this. Now I have 3 requests to speak. So we will hear, just so everyone knows the sequence, we'll hear the staff presentation, and then I'll invite those that have requested to speak to come up and speak, okay? Thank you. Jeff and Natalie, take it away.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Mayor and Council. We'll go right to what the property is here. It is just west to the existing Encore development. It is between 50 and 100 West First Avenue. It's approximately a little bit under 2 acres. The value of the property is $510,000. It's going to be subdivided into 2 different lots and 2 different projects. So lot 1, which if Jeff could kind of point that out, is a little bit under an acre and a half, and it's valued at about $380,000. Lot 2, which is just under a half acre, is valued at 129,000 acres. So what you have before you today for consideration is 2 separate purchase agreements, but they're tied together with one development agreement. But the 2 separate purchase agreements, the first one and for lot 1, and this is the acre and a half, is for affordable housing. It's for senior affordable housing. It's a continuation of their existing product and project. And that development agreement will not expire any earlier than 15 years from now. The market rate, which is lot 2, when constructed, the development agreement would go ahead and expire from there, or can be if they request it. What we've done with the development agreement is we've tied both of these projects to make absolutely certain that both of them proceed in a very timely manner and order. So both of the projects must begin construction no later than August 31st of 2017, and both of the projects must be constructed and opened no later than October 31st, 2018. Also in the development agreement is that we wanted to make sure that, based on some of the council considerations and discussion on Monday, that both projects are consistent with the quality that we've come to know with the existing Encore project, that they comply with the design plans that have been proposed earlier, that we ensure that there's reciprocal access to both parcels and also parking for both projects. And we've made a determination and worked with the developer to ensure that, when we move forward with the designs of the First Avenue streetscape projects, that he's working with us to make sure that the frontage on First Avenue matches that and has synergy with it.
As Natalie mentioned, we have one overall development agreement, but we have to have 2 separate purchase agreements in order to be able to work with the LIHTC application process. The first purchase agreement is for lot 1, and that would allow the 5-story 71-unit affordable senior housing project. As part of that purchase agreement, this is a contribution of the land by the city, but that land would not actually be closed on by the developer until they received an award of a tax credit. Once they receive the award of the tax credit, the project would then they would close on the lot and they would take ownership of it. There is a reverter clause built into this, so that if for some reason they receive a tax credit but then are unable to perform and develop the project, the land would then be able to come back to the city for redevelopment purposes.
Yes, Mr.
What's
Pinto.
thank you, Mayor, sorry. What's the timeline for the award of the tax credit? Because I thought they had kind of said, hey, we'll wait until this other one gets completed. So are we looking at a 2-year process before this would go?
Mayor, Councilmember Finter, the tax credit application deadline is March 1st, so Tuesday of next week. Awards are usually announced sometime early summer or early to midsummer, and once those awards are announced, then they have to work on permits. So they should be moving very quickly. If they get an award, that we'll be seeing permits in the system by the end of this year. I think maybe what the difference here is that this is not a home loan application fund, so they have withdrawn their home loan application. And in addition, with this development, they will include sustainable development standards that are part of the LIHTC application. It's it's a sustainable path of development that's included as part of the point system, and they will market to senior veterans as part of the Housing Our Heroes program. These are some of the renderings. Again, consistent with Encore 1 and 2, high quality buildings, high quality architecture. It'll be a nice addition to downtown for the architecture. Lot 2. The purchase agreement for Lot 2 would allow the market rate housing development, 24 units, 21 bedroom, 4 2-bedroom, and a 3-story building. The purchase price for that land is $129,000, and that is the market value of the land. They will be opening escrow for that development before March 1st, so that land will go into escrow. And if they are awarded a tax credit, then that money will go hard, and that will be the contribution towards the purchase of the land. We have included in the development agreement and the purchase agreement the agreement that if the council chooses at the request of the developer that we would explore a government property lease excise tax financing mechanism. We also have built into the development agreement, it's important that there are several mechanisms built in, not only just the construction start date and construction end date. There are several mechanisms built in to make sure that we get the same quality level as Encore, as well as that the land is developed as it has been proposed. And again, here's some renderings of that project. Compatible architecture, high quality. Again, a nice addition to the downtown area.
And with that, Mayor and Council, we're here to receive your direction. And as the Mayor so eloquently stated at the beginning, we're here to ask you for authorization for the city manager to enter into 2 purchase and sale agreements and to a development agreement with Mesa Housing Associates for this project. I also just want to take one moment to thank the team that was pulled together to pull this together. I mean, in general, we dropped almost everything this week to come together and to create a really efficient and seamless process and to do everything we needed to do to make sure we were protecting the public interest. So thanks to the city attorney's office, thanks to Jeff McVeigh, but also thanks to the development team that made themselves available day and night so that we could make sure we were working through everything and that we could be before you this evening with something that we feel confident recommending.
Thank you. Council, do you have questions for these folks? Thanks to staff. I know that this was an extraordinary amount of work that was done in a short amount of time, so that didn't go unnoticed. Thank you very much. We'll now hear then from those who have requested to speak. The first person to submit a card was Dee Montague. Dee, please come forward. If you would, Dee, please just state your address, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name's Dee Montague. I live at 553 North Orange Street. I've lived in West Mesa since 1968, 48 years. I've advocated for neighborhood things. Thank you to each of you for having individually met with me over the last several months on these issues. I first ask, are the emails that we've exchanged part of the record? Do they become part of the record? I know that in Board of Adjustment they do, but...
No, they're not part of the record for this meeting. They are a public record. Yeah.
They're part of the public record, okay. thanks you for those of you who have read some emails and responded. Mr. Kavanaugh, particularly yesterday, thank you. If he takes exception with our definition of West Mesa, we're happy to call it Far West Mesa, realizing that Greenfield Road is probably the geographical center. But the data that we've presented showing the impact upon the neighborhood is for census tracts that are used in determining the breadth and scope. Whether intended or not, the impact of the holding of the case in Texas by the Inclusive Housing Project versus the Texas Housing Authority said that if the development in an underprivileged area expressing more than 51% minority and poverty level, it becomes illegal now under that case, and under the July 8th, 2015 HUD rule to not consider the impact on a neighborhood of a development that is low-income housing tax credit approved. We believe that this approval for this project would violate the law as stated by the United States Supreme Court and the HUD guidelines, and that it should not be approved, that you expose the city and the developer to liability for breaking the law in that sense. Now, there's some other things that are a concern to me. First of all, it appears that the result of this project is that the city is giving away $380,000 worth of prime real estate, and it doesn't pass the smell test. The request for a proposal, the RFP went out, and it was open from February 4th to February 18th, which I understand was an effort to show that there is interest from market rate developers. Why the rush? Slow down. There's no deadline other than the March 1st application that the developer is trying to meet. If there is, in fact, as we know there is, interest in market rate where they would pay the $380,000 for the property to the city, why not explore those? There's no deadline. The only deadline is self-imposed. There's no legal deadline. There's no reason to rush into this. I know that in the study session, one of the council members said he was right on the line. We're hoping that he will switch over and that he'll say, no rush. Let's take more time. Let's look at it. Let's vet it. I know that another comment was made that, well, we've had a great relationship with the developer of Encore, and so we ought to go with him because we know that we'll get a good project. I think when it's examined, it'll be shown that while the RFP went out for February 4th, that there had been months of work privately with the developer, contacting staff and council members and working with them for several months before the RFP went out. That doesn't pass the smell test. I think that your action today should be to delay a decision and make a longer RFP looking for market rate development that will be compatible with raising the level of income. Now, the last comment I have is that the level of income in our West Mesa needs to be raised. Household income. We've lost grocery stores, hospitals, medical offices, banks, shopping centers, all because the level of per household income is low. Some may say, and I've had comments from a couple of you, that we may be perceived as being not charitable or racist or discriminatory. The whole point of the Texas case was that it was brought by the Inclusive Neighborhoods Project, that it's not good for people in poverty and racial minorities. The disparate impact of continuing to put in low-income housing projects, tax credit projects in those neighborhoods is not good for those people. They're not here to speak for themselves. If you don't think that I'm charitable, I'm sorry. You ought to come with me. As Fred Arnett says, you ought to ride along with him. But I regularly go into Parkside Apartments talking about passing the smell test. Try to get on the elevator there and go to the third floor without having to hold your breath. But I go into Mesa Royale. I was there with a meal yesterday for someone. I took someone else to the doctor's appointment this week from over that area. Regularly and almost daily, but several times weekly, either my wife or I are helping someone in that neighborhood. The people that aren't charitable have fled. They've gone to gated communities and gone east. We stay there. We love it. We want to live there. It is our home. We want to protect not only those poor, the people in the schools that are having a disparate impact. They're not having access to adequate educational, medical, economic job opportunities, and that's the whole point of the Texas case. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. Okay, the next person to submit a card is Betty Freeman.
I'm Betty Freeman, and I live at 48 North Robson. Thank you for listening to me this morning. I am here because I believe that the tax credit limited income senior housing project is not what we need in the downtown area right now. I don't have the skills to put these on a thing so everyone can see, but there are some pros. There's a lot of cons to this if we go ahead with Encore 3. You can see with this that market rate housing, which we did have a proposal for, is something that downtown Mesa residents want, downtown Mesa business owners want, and downtown Mesa property owners want. And I have to believe that there are some city staff members who support it as well. When you look at the visioning committee and what they came up with, does market rate housing meet several visioning committee priorities? Well, yes, it does. 3 of them, 100% of their project is market rate housing, which is one of the priorities of the visioning committee. It will it follows the transit-oriented development guidelines, and it will promote restaurants and nightlife. What will the tax credit housing do? Well, it will meet 2 of those. It will be a small percentage of market rate housing, and it is transit-oriented development. Compare the investment. Market rate, $24 million. Tax credit limited, $18 million. City land, they'll pay. The market rate developers will pay for the land. Tax credit, we're giving it to them. Permanent jobs, so important in our downtown area, right? Market rate housing will provide 30 permanent jobs. How many permanent jobs does the low income provide? 3. Any retail space with low income? No. With market rate proposal, 10,000 square feet of retail space available. Market rate units for 120 units of market rate housing under the Cardinal Capital Management proposal, only 24 under the other proposal. Diversity. Market rate, there are no restrictions. Students can live there, all ages and all incomes. How about with the tax credit limited income? It's very restricted. The only low income people over the age of 55, and I qualify for that. More age restricted units would add 75 more units of the same type of housing already there. Have we had any recent market rate developments in our downtown area? No. How many recent tax credit developments have we approved? 5. Encore 1 and 2, La Mesita, El Rancho, Escobedo, and Art Space has been approved. Some things to consider. With the City of Mesa negotiating to bring an ASU campus to downtown, what is the city's plan for student housing? Why choose a proposal that will not meet the need for student housing, especially for the universities who have already made a huge commitment to the downtown area? Their students have no place to live. They're housed in the Marriott. City of Mesa Visioning Committee identified market rate housing as a crucial building block in the redevelopment of downtown Mesa, as the committee was tasked to help chart the growth of downtown Mesa and to ensure that growth is in alignment with stakeholder and community interests. Why is council ignoring their findings? What is the city staff recommendation? Have we heard that? This property has been identified as one of the few remaining city-owned strategic properties in downtown. And why, council, do you want to give it away? Per the developer's remarks, Encore on First is a project designed for low-income older people who want to live in an urban environment. Low-income residents do not have disposable income needed to help downtown businesses thrive and to attract new, sustainable businesses to our downtown. Councilman Thompson stated he is not in favor of taxpayer-subsidized housing and always in favor of market-rate housing. Why the change of heart? Councilman Richens stated during the study session that tax credit housing is not quite what we wanted for this site. He also stated that the market rate proposal is of good quality, it's high quality. Then if the tax credit project is not really what was wanted for this site, why go forward with it? Why not wait another 6 to 12 months to get a better fitting project for that site? And Councilman Kavanaugh stated that Cardinal Capital Management does have a good reputation. He also stated that re-releasing the RFP would not be fair to the two developers who have made their information public. I say council members should be more concerned about what's fair to their constituents, the taxpayers and residents of Mesa, and less about wealthy developers. I have one last thing. I'm going to make this really, really quick. You know, the current climate surrounding our primary election process has done nothing if not highlight the frustration and anger many citizens feel towards elected officials. And you know, this disappointment isn't limited to federal and state politicians. Local elected public servants have a lot of explaining to do too. If it weren't so inappropriate, I would take a page from Donald Trump's playbook and say, we're dealing with idiots here. But I don't want to say that because it's not nice. But honestly, I can't even believe it's come to this, that we need to have this kind of intervention. The best decision seems so obvious. We all know we need high-density, market-rate housing in our town center. We have plenty of TLC halfway housing. We have sex offender housing. We have low-income housing. We have assisted senior living housing. We have drug-selling housing, and we have rehab housing. Developers are not banging down the doors of City Hall with proposals. For example, where are we with the RFP for the southwest corner of Main and Center? When you have a developer who is willing to take a chance on downtown Mesa, we should be bending over backwards to assist them. Instead, we question their integrity, their real intent. Council asks, why aren't they building on the property they already own? Well, hold on to your 1980s thinking caps, boys. Imagine the possibility of capital management putting up two market rate housing community spaces. One on the property in which they've already invested in downtown Mesa, and one on the free property the city is giving away. This is not the time for more low-income subsidized housing in downtown. It is not consistent with the vision developed for downtown. If another tax subdivided development is built next to those already in existence, it would deny anyone under the age of 55 years old the opportunity to live in those two prime city blocks of downtown. I ask respectfully that you re-release the RFP. We should not be gifting property without a proper vetting process. I don't understand why the council is determined to align itself with this group who wants, who puts up, actually they put up market rate housing. Mr. Huelmantle's group does put up market rate housing in other communities, for example, Tempe. And while I understand that he has also put in tax subsidized housing in other cities, he hasn't proposed any market rate housing for us. So I ask that you reconsider accepting this proposal and do what's best for Mesa residents, and please do the right thing for your constituents. And I appreciate your time very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. I ask you not to applaud just because I respect the fact that there's a lot of emotion attached to this issue. But we need to keep demonstrations of sentiment for a more appropriate location. So thank you. Next person that is asked to speak is Kevin Wynn.
Hi, I'll keep this brief. My name's Kevin Wynn. I own the property at 18 West Main. I've been down here for 5 years now. I've invested well over $1 million into my property and businesses, but I will admit probably didn't go well because of me. But as a property owner and a business owner, we keep encouraging more people with no disposable income. I'm not really behind that. I mean, we can be generous as anybody else, but downtown Mesa needs spendable income. Being a business owner, trying to draw people downtown Mesa is difficult. You guys have made great plans. I mean, the light rail is awesome. The opportunity for bars and restaurants, you guys really have promoted that. But business owners and property owners are not going to develop on Main if they don't see a core group of people that can walk and enjoy downtown businesses. People don't drive home to Los Andes and then come back to downtown for dinner. The Encore buildings look great, but really, I mean, we need to encourage and incentivize market rate housing, not more subsidized housing. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Council, is there any discussion on this? Mr. Thompson.
Just have a question for staff. Jeff, maybe you can answer this. What is the market rate right now in downtown?
I'm sorry, Councilmember Thompson, are you looking market rate rents or? It's a very tough question to answer because we haven't had a new market rate project to really define what our rents are. I can tell you that from responses to other proposals that what range of rents they anticipate seeing, and it's somewhere between $1 to $1.75 a square foot, somewhere around there, depending on the size of the unit.
And what do we risk if we were to build a 120-unit market rate facility and we don't get that? What happens to it? Does it then fall into the low income, or does it just go unfilled, or?
Does the city risk? I don't know if I could answer that question. The developers will build into their business plan a certain pro forma of what they anticipate rents to be. They build their operations and maintenance costs off of that, and then their return to their investors. The largest risk, of course, is on the private developer, is whether they can make their numbers work. Depending on which developer you're working with, if they're a developer that's looking for a quick flip, just to hold the land, recapitalize it after a few years, they're probably at a higher risk. If you're a developer that holds their land and looks at a longer window, say 15 to 30 years, they will probably be a little bit more risk adverse and be able to take that early few years at maybe a little less rent. But just in anticipation of what we've seen in other communities, Phoenix and Tempe, our rents may start lower until the market's proven up, but I would anticipate very quickly our rents would start to escalate as the market started proving itself.
Is the developer out there today? Is it okay if I ask him some questions?
If he wants to, sure. Welcome, Mr. Humantle. I know
it doesn't always feel that way, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I know you're in a tough spot, and
we're happy to be here.
I think you know that we all think highly of the Encore project.
I think that even if we don't all agree on things, it's reassuring that everyone in the room cares about Mesa. We do too.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson, go ahead.
Mr. Yamal, I'm curious, it was brought up that you build projects in other cities that are market. So Tempe, what are you building in Tempe, or have you built?
She's right. She mentioned that we have built both affordable and market rate product in other places. I think probably the best example of that is downtown Tempe. When we started, our first phase was in fact an Encore product, senior affordable. There's been a lot of discussion about what we're talking about with affordable. There's been discussion about the LIHTC program and Section 8, which are very, very different programs. And there's also been discussion, I think, maybe not directly, but the different kinds of affordability. And I think the senior affordable is very different than a family affordable product. What we built in downtown Tempe first in an area that was at the time, pretty undesirable to live, was an affordable product, very much like the one in Mesa. Frankly, we learned a lot from the Tempe project, and I think as a result, the Mesa product is actually nicer than the Encore in Tempe, although both projects we're proud of. As a result of moving people into that neighborhood where people hadn't been living for some time, a couple of different things have happened since we started. We built a smaller residential project next to it that was market rate. That's 27 units with 4 live-work units. We used the affordable component to bring people into the neighborhood and to change the streetscape, and then ultimately moved on to build a residential building that was market rate. It's worth noting that after we came in, we worked with Mr. Fox to build one of his Fox restaurants on Farmer as well, and that's been a tremendously successful endeavor for Mr. Fox. I certainly don't want to take credit for all his success. He's had lots of restaurants in lots of places, and they've worked well. This was a risk for him because it was an area that was in transition, and by us having changed the streetscape and bringing people in, it allowed him to move forward and change more of the area. We're also moving forward now with even a second phase of market rate in the same street in Tempe, the same area, sort of building blocks, much like we've done here in Mesa. That'll be a 13-story market rate product. We believe that Mr. McVeigh has pointed out that it's a challenge to say what market is in downtown Mesa. It's because there really isn't any. And I certainly understand why people want market rate. A number of people have maybe inadvertently suggested that we're not bringing forward market. Of course, that isn't the case. We are bringing forward 24 market rate units. It's sort of the same philosophy that we used in Tempe to bring new product in, to make it hopefully unique product, good quality product, the kind of units that people frankly can't get in other places, so that we could encourage people to come into areas they might not otherwise decide to rent in, so that we could prove the market up. It certainly worked in Tempe. We can't really take credit for that strategy. It's happened in lots of places, most notably in Little Italy in San Diego. Years ago, people didn't want to live there, and they built really impressive market rate rental product that you couldn't get anywhere else. And so people decided to move into those areas. Today, many years later, Little Italy is a desired place to live, and it's hard to find a market rate unit, and they're going up quickly. It's just huge demand. I think that if someone were to come and build a market rate project that's too big, the risk is huge. Mr. McVeigh's right. It would be a significant risk for a developer and a financier, bank, but it's also a risk to downtown Mesa. We don't know what market rate rents are. We don't know what kind of demand there is there. Obviously, we've been in downtown Mesa working on projects for some time. Obviously, we believe in downtown Mesa. Our theory is the best way to get more market rate units is to build some great quality units, product that you can't get elsewhere on the rail, and prove up the market. If we build the 24-unit product that we want to build, that we're asking you to let us build, we think we'll be successful. And then when Mr. McVeigh or someone else is providing a presentation, maybe it's Mr. McVeigh to you, or maybe it's another potential developer talking to a commercial lender, they'll have an answer to that question. They won't be saying, we don't know what the market is in downtown Mesa. We don't know what people would pay or if they want to live there. They'll say, well, there's a project in downtown Mesa. It's 24 units. This is what they get for rent, and they filled up quickly. And I think that's important in terms of when we talk about risk. Certainly it's risk on this side of the table, but as the question sort of alludes, it's risk on both sides of the table. The only way we come to a better downtown Mesa is all to work together to build better product and to meet those market needs. We have to help create the market as well as fill the market. And we think that those 24 units, which are designed very different than the larger buildings you might find in other places along the rail, are pretty unique living opportunities for people and to live in the downtown Mesa area, which we think is a great place to live.
So is that why you went with, what was it, the 24 units?
It is. We think that's a good number to be able to build properly, to build uniquely, to give people a unique sense. It's not a huge project. It's not exactly the same project you might find in Tempe or Phoenix. It's one you'll only find in downtown Mesa, and we think that we can fill it quickly, which will demonstrate the need.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Finter.
Anybody here from Cardinal? I'd love to put those two side by side, and I want to ask, what in the world Cardinal's thinking if this isn't going? So, anybody here from Cardinal? No? Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Humantle? Okay. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you.
And thanks again for building a great project in Mesa. We appreciate the Encore. It's a good place.
Thank you.
Other council, other questions or comments? I have a question for Mr. Smith. I honestly don't know the answer to this question. I didn't come to this meeting anticipating asking this question, but I think Mr. Montague raised the recent U.S. Supreme Court case that talks about disparate impact and the scenario that we could be accused of accumulating more than a disproportionate number of tax credit housing projects in a certain area. Does that case have some application here? And I'm sorry to. I know you're a legal scholar, so that's why I'm willing to ask you this question, because I think you probably have thought about this. But
yeah, I have actually, and I am familiar with the case, Mayor and Council. The case actually drew a lot of interest initially because the question was whether or not the Supreme Court would recognize a disparate impact claim under the Fair Housing Act. A number of circuits had already recognized that type of claim, including the Ninth Circuit, which we are in. And ultimately, the court did recognize that there is such a claim. So for many years, in fact decades, under the Ninth Circuit, disparate impact claims have been recognized under the Fair Housing Act. And so under Arizona, we've already been sort of, it didn't radically change the law like people thought. Initially, many people thought the Supreme Court might go the other way and not recognize it. In fact, that's why HUD adopted a number of requirements to sort of, in the event that the Supreme Court went the other way, they'd have some requirements in place. The court, and when I say this, lawyers use this term, they call it a cognizable claim. And what that means is the court actually didn't find that they won. What they said is you can proceed. And that the claim could go forward. And then they sent it back down to the lower court to even see if there was a claim. And the case is actually filled with caution. In fact, the need that many times low-income housing is located along corridors of light rail and so forth. The other thing is the facts are very unique in that case, in which there was a very strong or high minority concentration in one area of the city, and it was becoming basically a de facto segregation argument, and that's what the disparate impact claim was. Obviously, the product that's being suggested here is over 55, so I don't see how the facts are even remotely close to that case. And the Supreme Court case really was just simply recognizing that you could bring such a claim under the Fair Housing Act, which the Ninth Circuit had recognized literally decades earlier.
okay, thank you very much. And sorry, I should have given you some warning. That's an issue that's been raised several times in this discussion, and I never got your thoughts on that, so I appreciate your responding. We had this debate just a few days ago, so is someone ready to make a motion?
Mayor, if I may, unlike
Yes.
some others, because this is a special council meeting, we actually drafted a reso for this. So if there's a motion to go forward, I would just ask that it be a motion to approve the resolution to approve this item. We actually
Okay.
set forth all the details in the resolution.
Okay, thank you. You're right. This is a fairly complicated process because the motion actually is, and why don't I just read it so everyone knows. The way this is agendized is to take action on approving and authorizing the city manager to enter into 2 purchase and sale agreements and a development agreement with the Mesa Housing Associates 2 LLC for the conveyance of approximately 2 acres of real property at the 50 to 100 block of West Avenue.
Mayor, I move that motion.
Thank you. There's been moved.
Second.
There's a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those, Mr. Luna?
Aye.
Those opposed? Nay. Okay, motion passes 5-2. Next item on our agenda is to adjourn the special council meeting. Is there a motion to do that? Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.